Welcome, everyone, to the third episode of TeleTalk with Tracy Ball. My friend Tracy Ball, who works for Enable My Child. That is a firm that does just telepractice really all the time. So, Tracy, thanks for joining me again to
Thank
talk
you.
today. So, I hope you all are well. And Tracy, you can go to the next slide.
Sure.
And I'm going to just start out today by acknowledging some of the things that are going on in our country. This is June 6th of 2020, and I'm going to ask you to think of this telepractice with our students in schools in a bigger picture of an equity access issue. That if you're providing telepractice services to students, it is providing them with access to their special education. And unfortunately, not all of our children in all of the school districts, both urban and rural, are able to access services through telepractice. So I know many of your LEAs are working to be able to provide telecommunication devices and connectivity, but it is an equity and access issue in the larger picture, and we hope that all of our students will have the opportunity to have a free, appropriate public education and excel in school no matter what their cognitive level is, and achieve their full potential so that they can become contributing citizens in whatever way they can after school. And we want them to be able to do that for all students in a safe, accepting community where everyone can thrive together. So, Tracy, do you have anything to add to that?
Maybe from the perspective of equity across all types of people, situations, environments, socioeconomic, cognitive, geographical. A lot of the time right now, technology is in the hands of people who are either more affluent or have, for some reason, access to the technology that maybe people in a more, less affluent, maybe even urban, but without the funds to have internet access, or they're in a very rural area that doesn't have internet. Maybe they only have a very slow internet that's not capable of downloading for video conferencing and things like that. And so what right now is a disservice to those people is a lack of connection. I think technology has an opportunity to create an opportunity for those people once the technology catches up to not just being able to do this for people at the top of the socioeconomic ladder, but also getting that information and getting that technology in the hands of everybody would essentially help flatten the curve and allow everybody access to the same information, which is huge, and then allow everybody access to the same technology, which would be, giving everybody internet access. Elon Musk just put the first spacecraft on the International Space Station. That's a private mission, right? He also has a right now has a project that's designed to give everybody in the world access to internet, and it's already capable. They've already got the capability. They just don't have the funding and the approval from all the governments around the world to do it. So all these things are really able to happen now. I think that's called Starlink, if you want to look it up. But my thought here is that, even though it feels like technology has been around for a long time and we've done a lot with it, it's only just the beginning. And so as we continue to learn how to use technology more efficiently, effectively, safely, and securely, there's going to be a lot of added benefit, not only to the people at the top, but also everybody across the board once that becomes available. So I think that's going to bring equity to a lot of people. It's going to give people opportunities that never had them. So I'm really thankful, for the opportunity to talk about this. and it seems to be a timely, episode given all the events going on right now in the world, especially here in the United States with what happened in Minneapolis. So anyway, I won't belabor that anymore, but I just think that's really important to tie it in across all types of equity.
Yeah. So our director of exceptional children in North Carolina, Sherry Thomas, spoke very emotionally about this in a recent webinar to the directors of exceptional children across the state. And the State Board of Education in North Carolina has come out with a statement about equality and equity. And many of your LEAs are working hard to give everyone access and connectivity. So Tracy's showing the Starlink there.
Yeah,
quickly.
sorry.
And yeah, there's the information about Starlink if you're interested in checking that out.
There you go. Yep. So they've actually launched these, I think this news channel said they've launched 32,000 Linux computers into space for Starlink internet. This is 1 day ago. They discussed this. And so it looks like SpaceX and Starlink, there's some link here that they're going to be able to start to basically meet the needs of everyone across the globe to connect people. And so as governments start to adopt this, it's no different than a lot of other industries where when something is new, people at maybe the top end of the spectrum have access to it. And then, slowly over time, it becomes more affordable and easier for everyone. Back in the day when a flat screen TV cost $10,000, only a few people could buy it. But now, I don't know about you, I've been in homes, in my early intervention days where people may heat their home with boiling water, but they have a flat screen TV. And that's just a reality, And so I'm hoping the internet just becomes something that everybody has in their home soon. So anyway,
we are hopeful about that.
Yeah. So
today's talk is going to be about parent training. I've mentioned in a couple of the previous episodes that was a piece that we were missing in graduate students and I providing services to a virtual classroom of students with intellectual disabilities at the high school level. And it went fantastic and it was really fun, and I think the kids really benefited from it. But it would have gone much better had we, especially at the beginning, had we done a better job of a facilitator, parent, caregiver kind of training. So that's what our topic is going to be today. And I wish that I had done a pre-training session on really just the simple logistics. If the teacher of the classroom had all the parents' phone numbers, so she acted as a problem solver, facilitator for us, which was so great. But I could have done it myself had I had the parents' contact information, phone numbers, so that I could have just texted them and solved some problem, in real time. So to schedule regular sessions as much as possible so parents get that into their daily routines, weekly routines, scheduling those regular sessions. I know that's not possible for all of you all the time, that you have to sort of schedule sessions somewhat randomly, but as much as the sessions could be regular and parents could know to anticipate that in their week, that would be great. And then schedule that pre-training session where you're not planning to work on goals, you're not even necessarily planning to see the students, would have been so helpful to us. Anything to add there?
Just a tip from a practitioner standpoint would be that you want to verify what type of communication that is best for this families, and then speak with your LEA or your school about, if you're going to use texting, is there an app that's approved that you could use to text so that they're not texting maybe your direct private number if you don't want? There's lots of apps out there. Some may be approved, some may not be, but it's very important in the beginning to set that up so that you've got this nice group communication dialogue. Maybe it's a Google Meet number. You can, get very easily through schools. North Carolina schools have contracts with Google, so that would be something you could do. You could use Google Classroom. You could use lots of options. I think Google would probably have one of the solutions you need, but in in an ideal world, you would want to set that up in the beginning and start that group thread with the parent or the caregiver, the teacher, anyone else that needs to be in that group thread. So as the communication's going, you've got that nice record of what's going on. Everybody's seeing the information in one place. So that's a good tip. That
Yeah,
is very helpful.
a great tip, and I can offer a little bit more about that. I've done a lot of work internationally, and we have used the two apps, WhatsApp and WeChat. Both of those are free. You can download them on the phone. They work very much like Facebook. You could create a group of all the parents in one particular group. You could talk to parents through those apps individually. You make a great point there. They are not particularly confidential, so you just
right, which is why you want to check with your LEA, your school, see what's allowed. Yeah.
You just have to be careful about that confidentiality issue. So continuing on the pre-training session here, Tracy just mentioned like identifying what technology and connectivity is available in the home, and identify the platform that you're going to use, Zoom or Google Hangouts or Google Classrooms. Google Classrooms, I think, is what most schools are using. We always have to consider the HIPAA compliance situation, and your LEAs should be giving you guidance on that. The North Carolina Board of Examiners right now has relaxed the HIPAA compliance requirement. That surely will not last forever. So you just have to be really careful about that. Many of your LEAs now have purchased HIPAA compliant networks and are using those. So confidentiality is certainly an important issue to continue to consider.
And there's certain, I don't, were you done there? Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
I was going to say there's certain considerations to be made depending on if you have a really robust system where you're tracking your data and your IEP goals and you're logging information. Some of those programs in the future are going to start to roll out a telehealth option to add on and embed into those programs. Right now, it's up to us to go find that option and kind of add on. But one of the things you can do is a lot of times you can take advantage of a lower tier service that maybe you don't need all the bells and whistles for. So for instance, if you're just looking for a HIPAA secure, compliant, kind of end-to-end encrypted platform, you don't have to go with the system that has all the bells and whistles. Like Zoom is $200 a month for all that. You may not need that. Like Zoom may not be the best option for you for that. So you should really go find something else. And so that's just a tip that, especially when you're trying to justify costs to your program, when maybe you're looking at budget cuts for the next foreseeable future. So that's just a tip.
Sure. And speech pathologists typically are not the decision makers about those platforms, but especially in your smaller LEAs, you may have lots of good information about technology and platforms that you can contribute to your director of exceptional children or even regular education tech person's knowledge in choosing the network that you will use to do these.
Right. So I'll tell you real quick, Enable My Child has their own platform for this where we give other people access to the platform that we've built. And all of our conversations that we've had with people, a lot of the conversation revolves around the directors, the people, the decision makers don't actually want to make the decision. They say, well, if you want to, you want to talk to the therapist, like here's the lead therapist or here's the director of therapy. And they talk to their, like, in essence, they're really depending on what the therapist says to make these decisions. So you have much more power than you realize. It's no different than, a person in an engineering factory or a plant. The manager is going to look to those engineers and those factory workers to tell them what they want to use because they're the ones that are going to be using it. And if they don't like it, it's going to come right back up the chain and bite the manager in the ass. So they don't want that, right? They want to be able to say, like, yes, this is the best platform for us. Like, let's make one choice and make it right and not have to fiddle with it and make it a big problem. So ultimately, you do have the power, I believe, to make those decisions. You may not be signing off on the contracts, but you're making the decisions, essentially, I think.
So it depends on the LEA. You may be helping to influence those decisions. Yeah. So
yeah. Maybe the bigger ones are a little different, but a lot of them, you have more power than you may realize.
Smaller LEAs and certainly charter schools, you may have a great deal of influence. So
sure. Okay. Next slide.
Not quite yet. Consider if you're going to do group or individual sessions. That will be part of the training that you're going to do with parents, because how they are going to interact in a group kind of situation is very different than how they're going to interact if you are just seeing one student at a time. So that will be something that you'll want to talk to parents about. And then much has been made about informed consent for the use of the platform first, and how confidential it is, and whether students are being seen one-on-one, the SLP on the student. Confidentiality of a group is not an issue there, but if you are seeing students in a group, the part of your informed consent would be that everything that goes on within that group stays within that group, and that parents don't talk about other students or parents out in the community. And so that might be part of your training, is to really talk about confidentiality.
There's an interesting piece there. I don't know if we touched on this. I feel like we did at one point, but where some parents were recording sessions on their phone and then like streaming it to Facebook or posting it in their Instagram stories or whatever. And you really have to try to upfront protect yourself and the other children and families up there and say, this is what's allowed, and these are the things that are definitely not allowed. Like there's got to be some, because parents may be excited that their child's able to take part of this, and they may not really be intending to cause harm, but that could definitely come back on you. So
they don't live in the litigious world of special education that we do. And so you need to help them by extending some of our consciousness about that, and just carefulness about confidentiality. Yeah.
Sure. And that goes both ways. Obviously, like, we're not recording sessions unless we're given permission either. So yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
I think we're ready for the next slide. So again, if you have the parents' contact information that you can communicate with them in real time during the session or at the beginning of the session to help them problem solve, maybe the platform has worked really well for them usually, but for some reason today it's not working. And so the apps that you suggested, Tracy, WeChat, WhatsApp, that I suggested could help with that. You could, be just really aware of that and helping them problem solve through things. Or if they have their phone number, both those WeChat and WhatsApp apps have free phone kinds of things too, so you could call them in real time.
Yeah.
Make sure that. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Sorry.
Make sure that they have good, strong access to the platform, and maybe talk them through that. Access to the camera, they may be, some of them may be using external cameras or internal cameras, and there are some things to problem solve about both those kinds of situations. Make sure that, of course, that the audio is turned on and the video is turned on. Some simple things that even some of us have struggled with during Zoom meetings or whatever platform you're using. So some parents are much less familiar with using those platforms than we are, and even we have some trouble using them. So just to be really sensitive to that, and to be supportive and help them to be able to access both audio and video. Problem solve volume issues, lighting issues, location in the home. You guys are becoming experts on how to provide teleservice. And so you know what rooms in the home are best to do that in, probably not the kitchen if other people are in the home and are going to need to get snacks in the middle of the session. And, you know, you want quiet, well-lit rooms, and just problem solve with parents about those kinds of best locations in the home.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this also depends on what you're doing for therapy, because if it's a more functional therapy session, you may want to have a more natural learning environment setting where there are people interacting and you are coaching through those interactions with the parent and the caregivers. And this is a big point for the pre-training session, is that the parents do need to understand how to access the platform and sign in and make sure the camera is connected and all these things that happen with audio and video and lighting. But you also have to remind them that if they use a different computer, if they use a different web browser, if they change anything the next session, all that you've just done doesn't really help. So it's actually very important to make sure they understand that just because you connect them on their son's laptop or Chromebook one time, if they don't use the same Chromebook and they don't use Google Chrome again, if they try to use Firefox or if they use a different laptop, it's going to have to all be redone, because the only thing that's happening is the program, the software, is remembering the browser and the computer. And so it makes it easier the next time. So you do want to make sure they're using a device that they're going to be using consistently throughout therapy, which is another point that you may have to try a few devices. It's totally fine if they say, I'd rather use my phone, but my battery is not going to last. So going ahead and doing these pre-training practice where say, okay, plug it into the wall, or do you have an external battery? Like, help them problem solve through what it is we're trying to accomplish in therapy. What's the technology and hardware, going to do here, and making sure that you're problem solving all those things ahead of time so that when you get to the actual therapy, you're just working on therapy and not fiddling with the technology.
Excellent points. Excellent points. Yeah. Okay. Next slide. So we sort of talked about this earlier. You will want to connect with your LEA technical support if necessary. There might be some problems that parents are experiencing that you don't have the knowledge to solve. And so connecting them with technical support in the LEA might be a really important function that you take up. And a discussion about telepractice etiquette, finding the quiet, well-lit room, trying to contain the dogs that are barking, no siblings playing in the room, turn the TV or video games off while therapy is going on. If you're in a group setting, you're going to have to talk about taking turns, and we're going to give you some tips about taking turns in a minute. And then confidentiality. We just can't impress upon everyone enough the issue of confidentiality and how that is handled on the web kind of situation, but also handled between parents and students that are in a group kind of situation. And an adult really needs to be in the room or at least close at hand. We had a student in the groups that we were doing who was plenty capable and very independent and really doing most of the work that we were working on independently, but then her mother joined her in one of the sessions, and her ability was just so much greater with a tiny bit of support from her mom. And while she was plenty capable, and we didn't really think that mom needed to be present for the whole time, when she was, it just went so much better. So if a parent or caregiver, maybe even an older sibling who's a good facilitator can be present, that works so much better. And really the Board of Examiners really requires that an adult be present when telepractice is happening for students, some kind of facilitator person. So It's really important, really important. Like I said, the parent was just in the, like the next room, 10 steps away. But when she was right by her daughter, boy, things went so much better.
Perfect. I have nothing to add to that.
Okay, great. So again, we've talked about this through the app situation, provide some kind of ability platform for parents to be in touch privately, off camera, while the session is going on, to problem solve. That has proven so important. And like I said, the teacher in our group situation took up that function, but most of you won't have that luxury that I had. But I certainly could have problem solved through text in real time had I needed to. Send calendar reminders to parents. That's so helpful. It's so helpful to me. I live by my electronic calendar right now, and those calendar reminders will remind them of the sessions. And like I said, hopefully your sessions can happen consistently the same time, the same day of the week. That will help parents as well. Share the types of activities and the goals with parents, and how parents can facilitate those in advance is really helpful too. I think that is an asset to this kind of service delivery, that we have a better opportunity to share with parents the goals of their kids. They can see those goals being accomplished in real time. It's really motivating to the parents. That has proven to me a whole that I have not been accomplishing with parents, to really let them know on a more frequent basis, other than just the IEP conference, what their students' goals are, and showing them proof of how their children are achieving those goals. A friend suggested creating a YouTube channel with the training video for parents to watch in advance, and I thought that was a fantastic idea. Just that simple training video would be so helpful, and you could send it to them, and it would be really great. And then you wouldn't have to keep redoing it for every parent. If they had access to the YouTube channel, they could just view those training modules or that training video in advance on their own, and then then have a live session with them to problem solve and answer questions live. Anything to add?
Sometimes you can find other people that have already created these resources too. You can send links to those as long as you trust them. I think the parents knowing the goals and seeing progress in real time is really interesting. I know there's a lot of companies that are working on this. I know Enable My Child has a goal tracker that's that's transparent, where the parent can log in and see in the profile the goals being tracked in real time, and the notes, and things like that. And so I think it's helpful for parents to feel like they're more than they're more of a part of the team. They're engaged on a higher level. And you'll, just like anything, you'll get some parents that really, embrace that and want to run full steam ahead with that. And some parents who are kind of hot and cold, and some parents who may not engage with it. But I think it'll be helpful. The more tools you have, the more automated they feel, where you're not bumbling around with them. Like creating a YouTube channel may be really out of some people's lane. Like they just may just never happen, right? But they could search for the videos. They could search Pinterest or YouTube, or go to any of the platforms to find that information. They could use their traditional. They could also use their traditional methods in a Google Drive that they maybe have with their school, and share it with that parent on Google Drive, right? So there's lots of good choices there. So, and these are all things that you can do, sort of asynchronous, to support the care and the progress of that child on IEP goals, as well as the connection between, child, family, and therapist and schools. So that's it.
Yeah, good points. And your conversation there made me think of this. I was really going to talk about it sort of at the end, but it seems like a good time now. and some parents in the classroom that we serve chose not to participate too in our virtual therapy sessions, and that's an issue for you. But we really need to think from the parent perspective. I mean, some parents have several children at home and perhaps also are working from home, and this is just the one more thing that they cannot fit into their worlds right now. You know, people are going through some tremendously challenging times, and speech therapy through telepractice might be very low on their list. So
Right.
just opening your mind to be very accepting of that. And lots of people are doing a great job of providing materials in a Google Drive for parents to access in an asynchronous kind of manner, and that is acting in the best interest of kids to be able to do that. And if parents have some time to be able to access those, and giving parents you know, a way to be in touch with you if they have questions about how to use those materials, or if they reach a place in their personal lives when they can incorporate speech therapy in a routine, and can be in touch with you to initiate that. Those are all the best things that we can do for parents, and we just have to be very mindful that not everyone is in even if they have the technology, is not in a place in their lives to be able to incorporate this kind of service delivery. So
I agree 100%. Yep.
That's all I have there.
Okay, we'll go to the next slide.
So discussing some practice time with the student before they provide their response, that worked really well for us. We had the order of go, which is a bullet that comes up in a minute, but we said for this session, you know, Juan will go first, and Jamal will go second, and Susan will go third. And then we switched that up, you know, from session to session. But having a consistent order of go helped everyone know when to be ready. And then when we put the responsibility of responding back on the students, we also gave them a little practice time to practice their response with their facilitator or parent before they set it out to the whole group. And that proved to be just a really good, it went really smoothly. The responses were well rehearsed, well practiced. We did have to, you know, talk to some parents about not doing too much for their student, but really putting the responsibility on the student to come up with that 3-word response rather than the parent modeling it. Some of those became issues, and we like in an augmented communication user, having the student pick the response rather than the parent picking the response and the student just pushing the button to play it. All of those are things that we learned, but just a couple of seconds of practice time before they responded in the whole group, trying to foster student independence as much as possible rather than parents, as I said, modeling or doing the response. Those are all issues that you might run into. The order of go worked really well for us. And, you know, we were very mindful. The augmented communication user was not ever the first person but we used peer models for him, and that worked really well. We had his peers in the classroom go first, and that peer modeling worked super well in that place. Homework, we had homework for them to do during the week. Some weeks we even had them videotape on their phone the homework going on in the week, and the parents were super motivated to do that, and they sent forward the videos every week. It was so great. When I was in the schools, was not a good homework provider, and it just seems easier to do through this medium. because you're seeing the parents and you can say, you know, here's the homework assignments. And we had that Google Drive set up and we had a couple of activities. And the other thing that we did was have sort of a menu of activities that they could do during the week to accomplish the goals. And they were to pick one or two of those activities. And again, I was so happily surprised that every week, the kids that were logging on and taking advantage of the teletherapy were doing those activities every week. It was just a great way to really foster continuing the goals during the week that we would not be able to do if we were seeing the kids in the traditional therapy model in the schools. So I feel like this service delivery model offers a lot of advantages in creating stronger partnerships with parents and the home. And you know, parents are living with their students 24/7 these days. We never are. And the more that we can educate parents to be really good facilitators of communication all day long, every day, is great. And parents were asking us increasingly as the sessions went on, parents were asking us, hey, how could I do this during the week, or how could I do that? So much stronger partnerships with parents, a fantastic opportunity for us to facilitate growth in the area of communication and social interaction, even in the home with our kids that you're seeing through this platform.
Yeah, I love this part. I think what's interesting from a parent's perspective, I have a 5 and a 7-year-old, is that these items, these bullets about, you know, making sure you're discussing the order of go and what that means in a social situation, and having the parents, you know, help their children, coach them through that, the homework, practice time, discussing, you know, independence and letting their child fail, and focus on teaching and not just helping their child do everything right, but really focusing on like helping their child learn, and the focus is there instead of just making everything perfect all the time. What's really interesting as a parent, we have this desire to always help and make sure our children are doing everything right. And a lot of times, you know, that behavior is great, but a lot of times our children need to learn how to fail when it's a small scale fail, right? Maybe it's better for them to fail one test instead of the entire class, right? And so up front, we're able to let small failures happen, and we're able to support that through this service delivery model, because I think it encourages more communication and it encourages a higher level of feedback. Like that feedback loop, so to speak, is very tight, where you're getting information coming faster, as opposed to where maybe you communicate with the parent quarterly, you know, before. Maybe now you're really communicating weekly, if not more sometimes. And so I think from a service delivery model, telehealth offers that, and that could be something that we could carry through, I think, you know, not just during this time, but maybe, you know, indefinitely. I think it would be a benefit. And a lot of parents may see these types of goals as being just as important as their child's IEP goal. And because these are goals that the parents really can use, just like IEP goals, throughout their natural environment, you know, functional skills, academic skills, everything included. So just a couple thoughts on that.
And Tracy's talked about failure or struggles. You know, some parents don't want to see their kids struggle. Some of you are using an errorless learning strategy and philosophy. And so all of those are opportunities to explain to parents what kinds of philosophies you're ascribing to in your therapy, and how they can carry those things out during the week too. All of those kinds of things.
Great.
I think we have one more slide, maybe, Tracy.
This is the last one.
And we've pretty much talked about this. It's an opportunity to form better partnerships with parents, and you know, you will have to probably set up some boundaries. Most parents not, but some parents may have to set up some boundaries here. I think you're good about doing that. I would not probably be giving parents my own personal cell phone number, but those apps that Tracy suggested for us are an excellent way to, to really block off your time, your professional time and your personal time, and then go during your professional day and have a look at the apps and the messages that parents have sent you and respond to those, but then not turn those apps on during your evening hours with your home, with your own children or your families or your private life. So, Tracy, you want to go?
I just think it's an opportune time to speak about this. We have an opportunity to discuss equity in a system using technology that also applies, to gender, race, socioeconomic status, geographical, right? So I think it's really interesting. I think that we're going to learn a lot from this time, and I hope that the lessons that we learn, the failures that we have as professionals and adults, we're able to use those to carry through to our lessons to students and teachers and parents, and bring all this information to a higher level learning that I think over time is, when we look back, this maybe this, I don't know, 6 months, maybe by the time that we're kind of past all this, it'll be a year or so, we'll have sped up the growth rate of utilization of technology, maybe 5 years over that time, right? So I think there's going to be a big impact on this. And if we just try to have to, even if things are challenging, be positive, support people that need support, and, remember that, the opportunity is here. It may not always look equitable and fair to everybody, but we can keep trying to provide as much as we can to everybody in a way that they can tolerate it, in a way that they can accept it and digest it. And so I'm thankful for this platform, for Perry asking me to do this, and for the ability, hopefully, for other people to use this information. So I'm just excited about the future and some of the opportunities that we're presented with.
So I think that's an excellent note to end on. And Tracy, I appreciate you sharing your expertise from providing this kind of service delivery model for much of your professional career now. So we hope that you all will be well and safe, and we'll be producing episode number 4 in the near future. So take care.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Perry.